Hello folks, this is the WC with a breakdown, preview, and prediction video of the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. Man, in this video, I'm going to be going over the key players, guys that you need to be watching out for. We're also going to be discussing the benches, how the benches are going to be playing a factor into this game. And speaking of factors, I'm also going to tell you guys who the X factors are in this series for both teams. We're going to be looking at both teams' coaches, and ultimately, I'm going to give you a prediction on who I think is going to advance to the NBA Finals. All right, now I'm going to tell you like this. I'm going to start with Miami first. All right, Miami handled their business against the Knicks. They didn't play any games. They shut them down in Game 6, and they sent the Knicks packing. Jimmy Butler. Let's go ahead and talk about Jimmy B. Jimmy Butler is playing at this level where it's just like he's kind of unconscious. I don't know if anybody understands the whole, or most people understand what I'm trying to say, but just in case you don't understand what unconscious means, it's almost like he's like watching himself play, where it's almost like he doesn't necessarily believe it. And you can see it on his face sometimes. It's just like an out-of-body experience, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you play professional sports, you've done something where you're just like crazy. It's just woof. Like, you can see it in Jimmy Butler's face that he's just playing outside of his mind, outside of his body. He's playing at a completely different level, and this is like prime time Jimmy B. Like, this is prime time Jimmy B. But Jimmy B's not the only one on that Heat team that you have to worry about, all right? But he's definitely the star player. At the recording of this video, I don't know if Tyler Herro is going to play in the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals if they advance. And Bam Adebayo for the Heat has been a really good player to help them get to the next level. A low post scorer, a very agile low post scorer that causes matchup problems for anybody he's going to be going against, all right? Now let's take a look at the Boston Celtics. Now at the recording of this video, this is after the Game 7 performance of Jayson Tatum. So of course I'm going to talk about Jayson Tatum first. This guy, when he lights it up, when he's in rhythm, there's just nobody better but from beyond the arc. There's nobody better in the NBA as far as like creating his shot creation. And this Game 7 performance against the 76ers was elite. You got Brown over there who is gritty, who is very, very smart. And speaking of smart, you got Marcus Smart and the rest of that team. I'm going to get to the rest of that team in a second, but like the star players in this series are going to shine. This is going to be a really great series. I don't want to jump too far ahead with a prediction, but I'm just predicting for it to go back and forth. I don't know if either team's going to have too much of an advantage over the other. Now, let's go to the benches, man. I know I probably almost already jumped ahead, but looking at the benches, looking at the Miami Heat first, I'm looking at the Heat and I'm saying they probably really do miss Tyler Herro. And the reason why I say that they miss Tyler Herro is because they've had guys like Gabe Vincent come in. They've had Caleb Martin come in. Looking at Lowry playing off the bench, being a sixth man, sort of like that. Spruce is in the starting lineup, but he's played the majority of the bench this year. They don't have Oladipo. He might come back for the series. I'm not necessarily sure at the recording this video if Victor's going to be available. But the Miami Heat is filled with guys who are shot makers. These guys hit shots. These guys box out. They rebound as a team. I've seen games in which Spruce has had 10 rebounds. I've seen games, of course, where Bam has gotten closer to a 2020, the Barbara Walters type of game for Bam. So they rebound as a team. There's no slackers when it comes to rebounding and when it comes to perimeter defense with the Miami Heat. You're going to hear a lot about their defense coming up. And then you look at taking a nice little sharp look at the Boston Celtics bench. All right, you got Robert Williams, who's an anchor. He was starting last year, and now he's kind of more in the bench role, kind of conceding that to Al Horford, who's a starter. You're looking at guys like White. I know he's been a starter for the most of the time, but he has played the bench roles. like, for the most part, I'll say that Miami probably has the deeper, more experienced bench when it comes to looking at both sides of the spectrum. And it's one of those things where the Boston Celtics don't necessarily have a really, really deep rotation. I know if they have Brogdon come off the bench, he's definitely one of the candidates for sixth man this year, because he just comes in and he's just instant offense, instant consistency with a team like Boston, who has had their problems with injuries. Tatum has been hurt this year. Brown has been hurt this year. White has been hurt this year. I don't know if Horford has had a couple days on the bench. So they've had problems with their injuries, Boston, over the course of the year, but they've been able to work through it. At this stage of the season, injuries always play a factor, and I just got done talking about Tyler Hero. So when you're talking about the health of these teams, you have to look at that going into this series. All right, talking about X factors. All right, I'm going to give you an X factor from both teams. All right, looking at the X factor for the Miami Heat, it has to be Kyle Lowry. The reason why is because Kyle has been here before. He is an NBA champion. He is an NBA vet, and one of the biggest things that is a separator at this time of the year, I talked about this with the Phoenix Suns and why they probably lost to the Nuggets the way they did, because they didn't have Chris Paul. Now, if the Miami Heat get into any type of trouble when it comes to pacing, when it comes to being able to pick up the pace, you got a guy like Kyle Lowry on the bench to just come in and just maestro and be a change of pace. I'd be remiss not to mention an X factor like Kevin Love. He's been in there and he's been a starter, and he's a guy that could come in there and be instant offense off the if he's playing off the bench, he'll be instant offense off the bench, but he's majority been the starter. So if he comes off the bench, he's going to be instant offense. But X factor for the Heat is definitely Kyle Lowry. And then when you look at the Boston Celtics, they've got a whole bunch of guys that could be X factors, but I just mentioned them. Malcolm Brogdon is the X factor because of the fact that he's just instant offense. He's like a change of pace. It's almost like this series probably is going to be one between the bench matchup between Brogdon and Lowry. It's crazy to say it like that, where I'm not mentioning Tatum and Butler, because I think that they're just kind of I think it's going to be a draw. I think that they're just going to square off, and neither one of them are going to get the best of either one unless the teams just kind of flow and go in their opposite directions. But those are the X factors. Looking at the coaching matchups, I'm looking at Spoelstra, and I'm saying to myself, man, like, he's one of the best coaches in the league. To just have this roster and being able to craft them and coach them, you can see that the Miami Heat are well coached. They're like, it's something about Spoelstra that just kind of sets him apart from a lot of the coaches in the league. I think that he can just kind of relate to his players. I think that he gets the best out of his players. You can see him getting the best out of Jimmy Butler. Like, everybody talks about Jimmy Butler, but they don't talk about how well Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra, how well they get together. And that's a really key point out here. Now looking at Joe Mazzulla and the Boston Celtics, and looking at the way that he's handled the whole scandal with the other coach, and I don't want to mention his name in this video because it's not about him, it's about Joe Mazzulla. The way that he's kind of put this roster together and coached this roster, like, I really am impressed with the way that he's handled the whole scandal with the other coach, getting the respect of the players like Tatum and Brown. You can tell that they respect him. You can tell that they listen to what he has to say, and just a magnificent performance. Looking at the coaching matchup overall, and I'm going to be honest here, I have to get the advantage to Spoelstra, man. He's been here before. He's been a championship coach. And even though the Celtics are basically built to win a championship, the experience isn't necessarily there with Mazzulla. Now, looking at the prediction now, man, this is just going to be so tough because Jimmy B's playing so well right now. And it's just like betting against the Heat right now just feels wrong. It just feels wrong to bet against those guys. But after the 51-point performance by Tatum in that game 7, it's kind of hard to pick against them, but I'm going to do it anyway, man. Like, I think that Jimmy B and those guys can go in there and win at least one game or maybe 2 games in Boston. And I think that the Miami Heat can win this series in 6 games. But if the Boston Celtics win this series, I think that they're going to win it handily. They might win 4 games to 1. They might win it, in 6 games back in Miami, or the series might go 7. I think that everybody probably wants to see this series go 7 as well. So let me know how you guys feel down below. This is the Eastern Conference 2023 preview video. If you disagree with anything I said, if I got anything wrong in this video, don't be afraid to correct me down in the comments. Join the conversation. Be nice. All y'all Heat fans out there, I know y'all pumped up. All y'all Celtics fans are on a high after that game 7. This is a forum for you guys to talk it out. And until next time, folks, peace out.